We've gotten really good in the suburbs about building everything that we need right here. We don't like to go outside of our bubble, and so it feels like too much time and effort to go outside our little square mileage. And it's, if you have your restaurants here, if you have your shopping here, if you have all your friends here, there's no reason to go. And again, I think we assimilate. We get used to what we see every day. And even if we say we're not going to, we do. I do. And until you force yourself to see it, you don't have to. And we've done a really good job of making it so that you don't have to. I'm Bonnie Koss, and I am the founder and executive director of Social Fundraising and Gatherings. I had been a stay-at-home mom, and I would go have dinner with a bunch of friends. It wasn't very satisfying. I didn't feel like the level of conversation was that great. And so I started to think about that, and I thought, I'm going to throw girls' night outs with a purpose, and we're going to start with collecting school supplies. One of the girls' night outs, I collected 3 carloads of school supplies. And at that point, I didn't even have a school yet that I was going to go to deliver them. So I called the Philadelphia School Department and I said, give me your most needy school. They referred me to Richard Wright Elementary School. So I called up the school and I spoke to the principal and I said, I would like to deliver these school supplies that I collected. And she said, yeah, why don't you come down? And so I came down with myself and 2 other carloads of people. And we delivered the school supplies. And at that point, I thought I was just going to drop off the school supplies and leave. And the principal said to me, would you like to tour the school? I ended up saying, of course. And I toured the school with her. And we got to the middle of the school on the 2nd floor. And she said, this is our library. And I was standing in the middle of the room, and there were shelves all around the perimeter of the room, but there were no books.
Lewis Elkin Elementary School lies within Kensington, Philadelphia, one of the city's most dangerous neighborhoods. It's the eastern border of the Philadelphia Badlands, a section of the city known for an abundance of open-air recreational drug markets and drug-related violence. Kensington has a poverty rate of 46.8%. Out of its 52,029 residents, 33.4% of them do not have a high school degree.
Hi, I'm Mary Gorman. I am the assistant principal at Lewis Elkin. The way that we have it kind of structured here at Elkin is we have a principal who oversees everything, and then we have 2 assistant principals, one who deals primarily with climate and culture, and then my position, which is assistant principal, and I deal mostly with instruction. I think that all children deserve the right to a good education that prepares them to do what they want to do when they grow up.
By spending the time in the school, I started to make some connections with the staff. And not only did I make the connections, because the library just happened to be in the center of the 2nd floor, I could hear a lot of what was going on in the school. It was very different than my experience in the suburban public school. And one of the things that I realized early on was that they didn't have, besides not having books, they also didn't have paper. They didn't have pencils. I mean, there were like these basic needs that they did not have.
Elkin being in a very low income area, the money allocated towards Elkin, it can be tough to find the things. There's always more that we could do and always more funds that we can have. There's different programs that we would love to have at Elkin that is just it's a funding, we don't have enough. And that's just the bare truth of it.
And the 2nd school was Edward Gideon. Now what was interesting about Edward Gideon was they were a K through 8th grade. So they had that middle school component, which was very different than Richard Wright was K through 5th. And having that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, of course, gave it a completely different feel. And then we started to pay attention to some of that too. And so when the end of the year happened, the 2nd year, we were able to provide some graduation stuff for those 8th graders. But what we also saw was that although the kindergarten had started with like 300 kids, by 8th grade, there was only, I think, 30 kids that graduated. So there was either that many kids had either moved away, ended up in homeless shelters, or most likely from the principal, not from, from what she had told me, was that they just never make it to the 8th grade.
For us at Elkin, a huge priority is to make Elkin not just be like you come to school at 8 o'clock and you leave at 3 o'clock and it's you just learn math, reading, and science, you know? We want it to be and feel like more of a place that they want to be, and that they can feel safe and that they can grow. And so finding different ways to make that happen is a big priority for us.
So there's so many pieces to not having money. It means that you can't renovate these buildings, that, there's lead-based paint, there's mold, because almost every building that I've ever been in, if you go into any of the rooms, there's water damage and there's mold in the walls. So, it's endless, the amount of stuff that needs to be addressed.
We have like a few activities, but we want to open it up for students to have choice. We want students to be able to get what they need.
It's a cycle, right? So without the right amount of funding, the teachers don't feel appreciated. When the teachers have to take a big piece of their salary to keep their classrooms, full of paper and pencils, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what ends up happening after pretty much 2 months in, when they run out of resources. And so given that the principal doesn't have a big budget to replenish, then it's up to the teachers. And yes, the teachers do it because they have a passion and they love it, but they get exhausted.
People are stretched thin here, we have a full day, or so many of our teachers are like the hardest working people that I know, and they come in so early and they stay late and they stay for tutoring with their own class that they don't get paid for. Like, some of our teachers do that now, but not everyone can do that, Some people have to go home to their kids, they have to go home to a second job. And we have like our secretary, like, basically doubles as like a community coordinator, outreach person. We just have a lot of people doing a lot of things that if we had that extra support, it could really help our students in our community.
It's really a Band-Aid. And it makes me sad. Because there's such an inequity that is just not fair. And I don't ever want anyone to think that these little tokens of paper and pencils and, us even showing up and doing a, spring fair, yes, it's all fun, it's all good. Hopefully it helps us see the humanity in each other. But it's certainly not fixing the problem.
It can't change overnight. So I think first is like the acknowledgement on like our behalf that it's not like one thing that would fix it, but like little baby steps that slowly change the narrative and change the opportunities for our students. I think framing the work that we are doing in a really positive light, celebrating the accomplishments, and then also utilizing the community in a different way.
As long as we have money involved in our politics, it's always going to be an issue, because at the end of the day, if people donate to your election and you win, then you have to focus on what they want you to focus on, to be reelected. Because almost to this point, here we have this mayor who has really, I believe, is starting to turn around some of what's going on in the Philadelphia Public Schools. But I don't know if he's going to get a second term. His whole big thing was the soda tax in the city, because he really wanted to use that tax to fund preschool. And so he's using it for Head Start, which had been defunded, and now it's been being funded through the soda tax. And there are a lot of people who are unhappy about that, corporations. And so because of that, we'll see if he gets elected again. I hope he is, but it comes down to money and politics.
So like I live it, so I know about the inadequate funding. And so it's a constant thing in my life and the people who live here's life. So I don't know if it's like a you know what you know because where you live thing, and people are focused on their challenges, their everyday lives. You know, no matter where you live, you have those things that come up for your life.
It certainly isn't just about throwing money. It's about really investing in the community. I think it's about connection. I think it's about, really spending time. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're all striving for the same things. That we all laugh at the same things. We all cry at the same things. And the only way you know that is by sharing and experiencing and showing up. I mean, really, I thought I was going to go that day and drop off school supplies and then go back to my bubble. And when that principal took me for a tour of the school and I started to make the connections between the schools that I was volunteering in and this school, that's when I had my first aha. But the real ahas came when I spent time in the service days and realizing, this is a school. They're trying to educate these kids the same way as my kids. These kids, a kid would come into the library and their shoe would be untied, and I would bend down and tie their shoe just like I tie my own kids' shoes. And it's all the same. And, it's, it's all a false narrative. And we just need